My name is Kristie Holt. My background, I began my career as an exercise physiologist in a cardiac rehab program. And my job was to prescribe exercise programs and nutrition programs for people after a cardiovascular event. And although I really enjoyed what I did, I kind of always thought, wow, I wish I met this guy 10 years ago. I wish I met this gal 5 years ago. So I went back to school, did my master's in public health, and I've been doing disease prevention and disease management since then for the last 25 years. I work in kind of all realms of disease management, everything from women prenatally to postpartum to cardiovascular disease risk reduction, diabetes prevention, cancer prevention, and stress management. So it's my pleasure to be here, and of course today's presentation is sponsored by Kaiser Permanente as well. So in all my research, what I've really found is that everything goes back to sort of this one way of eating. No matter if you're looking at reducing your risk for cardiovascular disease, reducing your risk for all sorts of things related to inflammation, cancer prevention, or just trying to boost your memory or boost your cognitive skills or even boost your mood, prevent depression. It all seems to be related to kind of how active we are and what we eat. And the Mediterranean diet just seems to really stand up there as a gold standard. So what exactly is the Mediterranean diet? It's a simple, fresh way of eating. So it's a way of eating that avoids things with lots of preservatives, things that come from the freezer, things that come from a can. It's just a fresh, simple way of eating, really from the land. That's really what it was. So the focus of the Mediterranean diet is olive oil, lots of olive oil, fresh fruits and vegetables, and of course a whole variety, a whole rainbow of colors of fruits or vegetables. Because as we know, we get lots of different phytochemicals or antioxidants from the fruits and vegetables, the plant-based foods that we eat. And in general, you can tell the type of the antioxidant the fruit or vegetable has by the color of the skin. So the Mediterranean diet features vibrant colors like this red pepper or the purple eggplant or greens. So lots of different vibrant colors. The more colors you eat, the better chances of getting a wide variety of antioxidants every day. So that's why we say eat a rainbow of colors every day. So legumes and grains, lots of different whole grains. And in fact, an interesting kind of little side note, the star today is couscous. And couscous actually isn't a grain because there's no couscous plant. It's actually made from a grain, just like pasta. So actually couscous kind of is like a little tiny pearl of pasta. It's kind of interesting. A whole grain is something that contains the entire grain. So when we look at a grain, the outside of it is the bran, the inside of it is the endosperm. And different nutrients come from the outside and the inside. The inside is very rich in protein, amino acids, and different phytochemicals. So we want to eat the inside and the outside. So if you reach for an all bran cereal, it's just bran, it's not a whole grain, it's just that outer husk, not the whole grain. And that's why you'll look for foods that have sort of this whole grain label. Can you see that? This whole grain label? Yeah? And that tells you this 100% whole grain. That means that it has the bran, the outer husk, and the endosperm all intact in it. Okay? So couscous isn't a grain, but it's like pasta. It's made from a grain. Okay? So what is the Mediterranean diet? It is moderate amounts of nuts and seeds. Now, nuts and seeds give us a good source of our heart-healthy fats, like our omega-3 fatty acids, and moderate in the dairy, mostly from feta cheese, mostly from cheese, and it's lean in protein. So the protein sources are lean with an abundance of fish. So at least 2 to 3 times a week consuming fish. The deeper water fish tend to be richer in our omega-3 fatty acids, which are really good for anti-inflammation, really good for the brain, boosting memory, boosting cognition, and great for cardiovascular disease risk reduction. Okay, so what it is not, it's not canned foods, frozen foods, processed foods. It's not a lot of sugar, really not added sugars at all, and it's not high in saturated fats, the types of fats that are solid at room temperature, the type that tend to be more artery clogging, things like a stick of butter or the skin off of a piece of poultry or the fat that would be trimmed off of a piece of meat. Those are examples of artery clogging saturated fats. All right, a little history. So although you might hear a lot of people talking about the Mediterranean diet kind of in recent times, you might have read about it in popular magazines, researching it is not a new thing. And in fact, the first real big piece of research came from the 1950s in a real famous study called the 7-Country Study. And it looked at epidemiological data from different regions of the world and how indigenous people from those regions of the world, how they ate and how their health risks differed. It found that persons living in the Mediterranean lived longer, and in fact, a lot longer, on average 14% longer. They suffered from less heart disease, they had lower cancer rates, lower risk of stroke, and interestingly, lower risk of memory and thinking problems. Also, less risk for depression. In fact, when we follow people who follow the Mediterranean diet, we find on average they're about 30% less depressed than people who eat more sugary foods, more processed foods, more fast foods, things like that. So it works because it's really rich in monounsaturated fats, like our friend the olive oil. It's also really rich in antioxidants from all the plant-based foods that it utilizes, and it helps to lower inflammation. And we know that inflammation is a real culprit when we look at all sorts of disease processes, like cancer, cardiovascular disease. It's very high in omega-3 fatty acids. It's also really high in fiber, because you've got all those dried beans, lentils, plant-based foods, and whole grains. It utilizes a lot of fresh herbs and spices, so you're not using a lot of salt. When you lower sodium, you lower your risk for which condition? Blood pressure, right. Okay, so not a lot of added salt, not a lot of added sugar. It's high in magnesium, potassium, so lowering the sodium, increasing magnesium, calcium, and potassium really helps balance out the blood pressure. But importantly, is part of a lifestyle. So eating the Mediterranean way really means cooking, preparing your foods from fresh, whole ingredients, and sitting down as a family or a community, a group of friends, and sharing food together. So taking your time to consume your food, not just eating on the run or eating while you're doing other activities. Really sitting down, taking time to prepare your food, taking time to enjoy your food. And it also goes with a lifestyle of being more physically active. I mean, think about people that live in these fishing villages. They walk everywhere. They go and get their food every morning from the farmer's market, and they eat it fresh and they prepare. So it goes with a whole healthy lifestyle. Okay, so the must-haves. Olive oil, definitely a must-have. Lots of different grains. Experiment with all sorts of different ancient grains. Nuts and seeds, a whole variety of different colorful fruits and vegetables. Okay, so let's start out by preparing the couscous. What we do usually in the United States, the couscous that you'll find is sort of an instant couscous. I'm just going to boil a little bit of low sodium organic chicken broth. Am I good here with the burner? Yeah? Okay. Once this broth, and you can use water, you don't have to use broth. I like using the chicken broth. It adds a little bit of a flavor. I did buy an organic, low sodium variety. We're gonna add a little bit of olive oil to that. Just like when you cook pasta and you add a little bit of olive oil, it helps so that things don't stick together. Just about a teaspoon. And maybe like a little pinch of salt for flavor. Not necessary, completely optional. I'll just do a little. Okay, so once this boils, we'll add the couscous and then we'll cover. Now, this type of couscous comes from a box. You can make it from a box, but you might have a difficult time finding the whole wheat variety, except for if you go to a Whole Foods store and get it from a bin. So this is from a bin, from a store like a Sprouts or a Mother's or a Whole Foods, where they actually have whole foods. Interesting thing, the traditional way to prepare couscous isn't to do it like this, to boil the liquid and then to add the couscous. It's actually to steam it. So they take the liquid and they bring it to a boil, and then they use a cheesecloth and put the couscous on it and cover it and actually steam it instead of putting it directly in the liquid. It's a little more time consuming, but the varieties that you'll probably find at your supermarket are going to be the instant where you add it to the liquid. Okay, so let's see, where did that go?
So if you buy the bulk one, that's the non-instant, you cook it the same way?
Yeah, the ones that we have in the United States, you can cook it the same way. The real laborious way of cooking it, you're probably not going to find that variety in your stores, even at the Sprouts, even at the Whole Foods, things like that. So once I stir this in, I'm going to take it away from the heat, and I'm going to cover it. And I'm just going to let it sit there. Okay, let's see, and we want to prep our veggies then? Okay. So we're letting this kind of cook, and it only takes about 5 minutes to do so. Let's see, let's do our grape tomatoes. So I used a variety of the yellow and the red. You want to show how you can slice those? It's not necessary that you seed them. Just kind of show them, give them a little tip on slicing the tomatoes. What do you think? What's your expert advice?
Well, you'd cut them widthwise instead of lengthwise. So you'd cut them around this way, and if you do want to de-seed them, then you'll see the pods like that, and you'll be able to scoop it out a lot easier. So in case you don't want that extra moisture in between.
Also, when we add the cucumber, it calls for the cucumber to be peeled and de-seeded. I bought an English variety of cucumber, and you really don't need to de-seed the English cucumber because its seeds aren't as, the membranes around the seeds kind of aren't as thick, and it's really not that necessary to do that. But if we were going to de-seed, do you want to show how we would do that? Would you just peel the...
Don't de-seed cucumbers. Do you de-seed cucumbers, Kat?
She's right about the English one.
You don't need to de-seed the...
The one is a lot more, the core is a lot more added moisture, and you're almost finding more English versus the traditional.
Right, so with this one, you see here, you would not need to de-seed it, but a traditional cucumber. The English variety is a little more expensive, but they're a little longer, so you get a little bit more, and I think that they kind of do better in salads. Okay, so we did use the English variety there. And then the red pepper is diced. Do you have a secret about the red pepper? Usually what I do is I just cut this way first and discard the seeds.
It really just depends on how you want to cut it. I mean, I usually just remove the top, and then I pull the top out. So there's very little seeds. Usually if there's any left, you can just tap it and they'll all fall out. And that's it. After that, you can just slice it any way you want, either lengthways or cube it out.
Yeah. Interesting thing about the red pepper is that all the different varieties of peppers, the yellow, the orange, the red, they actually all were green peppers. And these are just sort of overripe green peppers. And what's interesting is that while the green pepper is most common in the United States, the red pepper has twice the amount of vitamin C as the green pepper. So it's a really great idea to kind of use different colored peppers. The red pepper is much sweeter tasting because it's riper than the green pepper. So, excuse me? Yes, it's also, they all started out as green belled peppers, and then it's just different stages in the ripening process. A little less, more than the green, but less than the red. The red is the most ripe, and it's the richest source of phytochemicals and richest source of vitamin C. Yeah. Okay, so we're gonna add a little bit of, let's see, how's our couscous doing? Want to give that a little. What do you think? It looks good? So, can you see this, the couscous from here? No. Let's see. See how quick that was? It's all ready. It's all nice and fluffy and ready. We're just going to add this in here. Now, one thing about couscous and other grains, such as like quinoa, is that they really just absorb any flavors that you add to them. So whatever you add to them, they're going to absorb those flavors. Let's see. Why don't we, let's dice up some of the mint, and we'll dice up some of the green onion. And I'll go ahead and I'll zest a little bit of lemon. So, let's see, beautiful lemon, and just for some flavor. So you've taken off the washed mint leaves and kind of rolled them together before you dice. It's just an easier way to get sort of an even dicing with them. That should do. Yeah, I think that's great. Just all these beautiful colors in there. And let's see. Usually with my lemon, before I squeeze it, I like to roll it out a little bit. Lots of different tricks you can use to avoid getting seeds into your mix. Kind of what I do is I just usually put a little strainer over. And then if you squeeze it upwards into a strainer, you won't get your seeds. So we're just looking for 2 tablespoons. The lemons now are really good. I think you got 2 tablespoons in there. No? Yeah, I don't want to do too much with the. That's an interesting shape.
Yeah.
Let's see, let's get a little mixing bowl and a little whisk. I think you got a little whisk. There you go. Or we'll just do 2 tablespoons of this. And we'll do a little bit of the got more than enough. I'm going to dice up this green onion. I'm just going to dress this with a little bit of sea salt. It's not necessary. A little bit of black pepper. And we're just looking for a 1/2 cup of the green onion, so I think we're good. Let's see. Mix that up. And I'm going to dress with my lemon juice. So you see that took just a couple minutes. And how are you enjoying all the flavors? Good? Yeah, everything go together? So this is great because it can be used as a side dish. It can be used as a main dish. It can be, put into pita, make a little sandwich. You can add any kind of protein to it, like a nice grilled salmon, some grilled chicken, or you can do it as a vegan or a vegetarian meal with the falafel, a really nice accompaniment to that. All right, let's see, questions?